Welcome, everyone, to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. I'm a networking expert and the author of the upcoming book, No Strangers, How to Build Community, One Relationship at a Time. My why is the pursuit of mastery, and the goal of this podcast is to lock arms on a lifelong mission of daily personal growth to become the best version of ourselves. So let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. We are joined by a very special guest. He is a magician, he's an author, and he's a spiritual intelligence expert. So welcome to the call, Mr. Rodrigo Diaz Mercado. Now, how are you doing, my friend? Today, it's a snowy Friday afternoon in Toronto. I was just out for a walk. I'm going to be honest, it was freezing. It was super unpleasant. So I'm very happy to be inside in the warmth talking to you right now. So how are you doing today?
I'm very good, Joel. Thank you for having me today. I'm very excited to talk about everything we're going to touch on.
We have so much to talk about today, so we'll dive right into it. Now, we met a few years ago. We were at a 3-day pure spiritual intelligence event. This is run by Mr. James McNeil. That's a mutual friend of ours. He was actually the first guest interview on this podcast last year. So we have that connection and comment. And then over the last, I would say 3 years or so, I've run into you and your wife at different personal growth events. So we're kind of on the same page. We're kind of in the same network, and we've been able to stay in touch. So let's dive right into magic. How does someone fall in love with magic? How does someone create this passion? Where does this come from? And how does someone become a magician? How do these things happen?
That is such a beautiful question. How did I become a magician? How does someone like magic? I truly believe it's something that starts when we're little kids, because when we're little kids, we don't have this sense of reality, right? Everything could be possible. And at that age, everything is possible. I think I really fell in love with magic back then when I was a little boy. The fact that something impossible could be possible, even if it was for 3 or 5 seconds, that for me, that feeling was really, really important. Growing up, I actually did not become a magician up until I was 20 years old, a little bit older than that, so early 20s. And it only happened because I saw a movie about magicians, and actually it was a rom-com, like a comedy, a romantic comedy. And it reminded me of my love for making something impossible possible. So since then, I started to re-practice those concepts, my sleight of hand, and I really wanted to deliver that experience to someone else. So that's a little bit of how I began to really become a magician.
What was the movie? There was a year where 2 big movies came out that had to do with magic. There was The Prestige, which was amazing, and there was I think it was The Illusionist, which was also very good. But I think it was earlier than those movies came out. Do you remember the movie that you saw?
Absolutely. How could I forget, right? That magic moment. It was a comedy movie by Steve Carell, and it was called The Incredible Burt Wonderstone.
With
So
Jim
it's a
Carrey?
comedy. Yeah, it's a comedy movie where they make a satire. They kind of make fun of the old magician versus the new magicians, the street magic. So it's a little bit of a comedy. It's really fascinating.
See, I love discovering something that I'm passionate about later on in my life. A lot of times we really find what we love early on. When you're a kid, you find out you love hockey or you love skateboarding or whatever, or magic. And then, we tend to get into these set patterns of this is who I am, this is what I enjoy, and we don't break out and learn new things. And, I got very excited later on, probably in my 30s. I became passionate about the UFC. I became passionate about poker, different things. And I love later on discovering something that I hadn't discovered yet for, the first 20, 30 years of my life. So that's pretty awesome that you started enjoying magic a little bit later on. So what is your favorite part of being a magician? And do you have a favorite memory in your profession as a magician?
Yes. So my favorite part of being a magician really is the ability to create what I call a gift. Not from me to you, but actually there's a gift that you and I create together. It's a moment in time and space that it will never come back. That moment is the magic. It's not the trick, it's not what I'm showing to you. The magic happens between two people that are creating this impossible moment right here and right now, which we're gonna get into more conversation of my book. But that was like the aha moment, is creating a moment that cannot be repeated. It's a gift between you and I, and where the impossible became possible.
And are there certain traits that the best magicians in the world possess? And do you have any favorite magicians that we should maybe be studying, whether it's reading a book about them or watching some YouTube videos?
Yeah, there's absolutely magicians I admire because they take magic and they kind of, not that they don't pay attention to the sleight of hand. That is kind of like their craft, like an artist craft, a musician, right? So this is their craft. But they take that craft and actually help you understand a different perspective. So it's not about the trick. I love the magicians that understand that it's never about the trick. It's about the reality that you are creating inside of your own head. So for me, someone like David Blaine, it's a little bit of that kind of magician that takes it to the next level where he is magic. He doesn't present to you a magic trick. He literally presents to you an experience. So I feel like that's the gap where some magicians want to get there, and he's one of them. And yeah, there's a bunch of other magicians that are like Danny Garcia. It's another name. He's actually a consultant for David Blaine. So all these people that have taken magic into impossible moments. So it has nothing to do about the trick. It's about the moment that looks so ordinary, but it's something extraordinary in it.
So David Blaine has done some pretty crazy stuff. I mean, he's been frozen in a block of ice for a week. He's been buried alive. Recently on YouTube, he flew into the atmosphere with a bunch of helium balloons, like the movie Up.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite kind of stunts or tricks that he's done?
To be honest, yes. The My favorite type of magic, for some reason, it is the close-up magic. So for me, close-up magic, it just takes ordinary objects like a ring, like your watch, your cell phone, playing cards, and takes those simple, really examinable elements and creates magic with that. For me, that's where magic really, really lies. It's not necessarily the big flashy lights and the big stages, but just the simple things of life that I can show you something impossible with it.
So your background as a magician, it's allowed you to write a book called Sleight of Hand or Sleight of Hand. I got a copy right here that I read through recently. I gave it a great review online to help spread the word. Um, where did this book come from? What made you want to share what you learned as a magician, and how you tie that in with the real world and lessons and personal growth?
I realized that magic, as I mentioned, takes the impossible and makes it possible. I realized that there must be some lessons that anyone can take from magic tricks and apply them into real life to create what I call real magic or miracles, right? That's what I will call real magic, a miracle. So analyzing principles of magic, like misdirection, like sleight of hand, I'm like, maybe there's something we can really incorporate in our daily lives to create what I call, the title of my book is Sleight of Mind, how to create and experience magic in your life. So I realized that if you and I can cohesively and consciously use our thoughts and feelings, we generally can create, that's the sleight of mind, we can create real magic in our lives.
You in the book you bring up lots of different types of illusions. Can you share what a few of those illusions are, and how can our listeners break free of those illusions?
Such an interesting topic because I'm trying to help people understand that reality, it's absolutely based on perception, on perspectives. If our reality is based on perspective, example, you and I can go to a restaurant maybe when things are better. But if we go to a restaurant with a bunch of friends, we each will have a different experience of restaurant. Maybe perhaps you look at the healthy menu. I look at perhaps the meat. Someone that is perhaps vegan could get upset because perhaps that restaurant doesn't have a vegan option. Someone that likes desserts looks at the desserts. Someone that is sensitive with children, yeah, and if they have a lot of noise around the restaurant, might get upset that there's a lot of noise, and vice versa. So we each have a very different experience of the same thing called restaurant. So if that's true for something that small, perhaps our reality is very individual. So we're creating a reality based on illusions. So you talked about what kind of illusions do you and I experience every day and how can we break them? One of the most strongest illusions to break, and it's just an illusion, it's the illusion of control. So what does that mean? Control is something that the human being wants to have because through our ego wants to survive. So the more control you have, the more safe you will feel. It's just a survival kind of ego instinct. But control is impossible to have. Why? Look at nature. Nature is. Life simply is. You simply move along with life, and there's no such thing as control. So I have a lot of clients that have examples like they could be controlling towards their kids or their relationship with the partners, or why is Monday Monday. So when you try to shape, to control something that is outside of you, you will always suffer. Illusions will make you suffer. So we need to break those illusions, meaning the only thing you can be capable to control is how you feel in the inside. There's nothing in the outside you can control. What you always can control is the way you think, you feel, and you react towards those illusions. So that's one of them that is very important.
It said that life is a balance of chaos and order. And if you have too much order, then life is boring. It's no adventure. You know what's going to happen today. You know what's going to happen tomorrow, and that's no kind of existence. And on the other end, if there's too much chaos, that's where it's overwhelming. Things are breaking apart. So the fine line is to kind of straddle chaos and order, where you have enough order that you're not overwhelmed, and you have enough chaos that there are still unknowns and there are things that you're excited about. I guess that's one way to look at it. You talk about habits in the book. So how much power do habits have over people's lives? And is there a way to rewire your bad habits and to create good habits?
Absolutely. Habits, in my opinion, habits go inside what we call your unconscious or subconscious mind. So they're in there. And a habit actually rules 95% of your life. You might not know this. So if you have a habit, so I explain people the way you think has become a habit. So every day when you wake up in the morning and you think thoughts of work, to-do lists, stress, that has become a habit. It's not you anymore. It's like an autopilot. Second of all, the way you feel has become a habit. So if most of the time you feel stress, anxiety, and anger, that has become a habit. The definition of a habit is something you do so many times that now it's automatic. You don't consciously need to think about these things. The next one that I want to share with you is when my clients can have breakthroughs. You are a habit. Your name, your nationality, your gender, and your job title have now become mental patterns, habits in your head. So when you wake up in the morning, if perhaps I am a man should behave a certain way. I am from Mexico. Mexicans are a certain way. I am Rodrigo. Rodrigo has had these 30 something years of life and has to behave a certain way. And my job title, if you're a marketing manager, if you're, or perhaps just a father or a mother, those are habitual labels. None of these you chose. You didn't choose your name, you didn't choose your gender, and you didn't choose your nationality. Yet we behave like those things. So that's a habit now. You have become a habit. So our job now is to stop, look at this, and if we do not like the person, the life that we have right now, the person we have become, it simply means don't be harsh on you, don't judge it. We're just a habit. Perhaps now we can create the habit of happiness, abundance, love, joy. So it's now how can we create those new habits? So that's the conversation that is in my book, and it's very interesting to have.
So we're both fans of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he suggests that first thing in the morning, for the first hour, you should not be looking at your phone or technology because it's what you talked about. When you wake up and you look at your phone and you scroll your social media, you are reminding yourself of who you are and what your habits are and what you normally do and what people expect of you. And that's what has you doing the same thing every single day in the same mindset, staying stagnant. And if you can just start the day fresh with fresh ideas, um, that's a better way to go. So, how did you get into Dr. Joe Dispenza, and what is it about him that attracts you to his teachings?
It all started about very close to when you and I met. So a little bit before you and I met, I actually had my awakening. I had three diseases attack my body at the same time. And the last one was that my appendix was bursting. So obviously I had to be rushed to the hospital. And it was in my hospital bed when I don't know where this thought came from, but the thought said to me, if I don't change the way I think and I feel about life, I might not be here in the next year. Because, so to give you a little bit of context, I realized I had been depressed, angry, confused, anxious for 7 years. Like I had awakened in that moment in the hospital bed. I didn't know where to change my life. So most people, when they hit that rock bottom, sometimes I was in that position that I didn't know where to begin to change. So what I did, it came in my lap, was his book, Becoming Supernatural. And I started to understand the habits conversation, that habits are not simply just like walking, texting, or brushing your teeth. Habits go way deeper than what we just talking about, your name, your gender, your who you have chosen to be. I didn't know exactly where to start, but that concept alone changed my life. If I became the habit of being stressed, confused, angry, depressed, how can I break the habit of being an old Rodrigo and now create a habit of abundance, joy, new opportunities, and new life? So I started to do some of the practices. And the first practice, not only him, but everyone is saying, every mindful teacher that we have is saying, is have a personal practice of silence. And I discovered, and we'll talk about it in a second, I'll discover that real magic comes when you start to use your wonderful human imagination.
Mm. And you mentioned earlier the subconscious mind. So people that are hearing this for the first time, what is the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind? And you mentioned that 95% of things are kind of going on in the subconscious. You don't have to think about blinking and breathing and all those things. And there's so much stimulation in the world that if you were actually aware of everything going on, you would just go crazy. You need some things to be automated. So talk a little bit about the subconscious mind and why that's so powerful.
Consciously, you and I have only 5% of that power to be conscious right now. So 95% is unconscious of what you do. A good example to kind of really grasp this conscious versus unconscious mind is, I don't know if you or you at home, perhaps, how many times have you tried to go to the gym, you buy the membership, you buy the good food, you buy your running shoes, and you're ready to go. So 5% of your conscious mind is ready. You have done the research, the diets, the gym membership. You're ready to go to change that life, those pounds. Yet you go to the gym, and after maybe 2 or 3 weeks, you're like, oh, I'm done with this, right? New Year's resolution happens a lot. What happened there is that consciously, 5% of you was ready to make the change, but 95% of you unconsciously was not ready. You have not programmed yourself to do so. So after 3 weeks of really trying hard with your conscious brain, then the unconscious, being 94% of your habits, of your lifestyle, wins. Because 95% versus 5, that's the big battle. So the unconscious, just to kind of give you another perspective at it, it's like you mentioned, your bodily functions, like your heart beating, your blinking, the blood inside of you, has a divine intelligence, if you will. Something is just operating inside of you unconsciously, subconsciously. So what we're trying to do now with the work that I'm doing is understand how to program that subconscious mind through your imagination. So now when you go to the gym, it's actually not something, you don't go to the gym now to lose weight. That would be you uses your conscious mind. I want to go to the gym to lose weight. Subconsciously means you are perhaps with some extra pounds. But the way to program that and to now help your subconscious mind to be with you instead of against you is with your imagination. You should start to imagine that you already are that fit person you want to be, or the weight, the ideal weight you want to be. So when you imagine that, you will have thoughts and feelings that will go into your subconscious mind. So your subconscious mind, by the way, is your heart, your emotions. So when you feel like a fit person, when you feel like a healthy human being, even though in the illusion of the world that's not there yet, but when you feel it, then going to the gym is natural. Then having a healthy diet is, it's not even a diet, it's just a way of eating. So that's a little bit, I hope that helps to start programming a different side of you. You must be from the inside, so then the outside can manifest that reality.
I saw a post online around, say, January 22nd, and it said, if you are still working towards your New Year's resolutions, congratulations. By January 21st, whatever, 90% of people have already given up. So just to show you again, the setting goals and getting rid of them, and people are using their conscious mind instead of the subconscious mind. And again, they say that setting goals, it's more about the person that you become while you do it than the goals themselves. So instead of I want to lose 20 pounds, it's I want to start taking care of myself. I want to get more sleep at night. I want to go to bed earlier. I want to walk every day. I want to make healthy meals. And by default, by becoming that person, by embodying that, you will lose that target amount of weight anyways. I've also heard you're talking about kind of speaking things into existence by embodying them now instead of saying, oh, I hope by this date I lose this weight. It's speaking it now. um, I've heard that the best way of setting goals is to look ahead at, say, December 31st, 2021, and saying, now that I am in the best shape of my life, I'm so grateful and I feel healthy. Now that I've earned this amount of income that I'm looking to make, I feel great. And you speak it as if it's already now. They say be, do, have. So you got to start by being that person, your ideal person. And then if you're being that person, you're going to do what that type of person does, and then you'll have what they have as well. So just something that triggered as you were talking. In the book, you talk about cultivating that childlike wonder. Why is it important that adults can go back to the way they were as a child, where they have that wonder, where they play more, they have more fun? Why is that important as an adult?
The childlike wonder conversation is so fascinating. I encourage people to perhaps stop calling it childlike. and perhaps call it creative like wonder. See, when we're kids, we do not have limits. In our imagination, everything is possible. So we simply play not to win or lose. We simply play. There's no winning or losing. We just explore, we create, and move forward. As an adult, we tend to fall into the illusion, now we're talking about illusions again, that there's a win and a lose, that there's a failure and a success. So if we can just remove the word childlike out of childlike wonder and just simply put a new meaning to it, creative like wonder, do you want to create a new life? They go back to creative like wonder, which there was not winning or losing. They was just moving forward. They was just trying things. We see childlike wonder. So for me, by the way, childlike wonder, a child has is more connected to spirit, is more connected to the universe than an adult. Because again, as an adult, you and I have had habitual patterns. We have been trained, we have implanted a microchip called society where we must do things a linear way. And a child, there's no linear way. That like when a mom calls their kid, like, come on, stop playing your game, let's go for dinner. And the kid is just like in a broom jumping around, and in the kid there's a unicorn. Or the mom says, hand me the broom, you're done playing. The kid doesn't understand what broom? What do you mean? Which broom? The kid only sees unicorn. How does that apply to you? To you and me? Well, it applies that if you want to create a better income, if you want to play a better relationship with yourself or with someone else, a new experience in your life, you must go back to playing, to trusting. Trusting is a key word there. A child trusts. So when you trust, there's no such thing as win and failure. This just is, and you move closer to something that you want. But you wouldn't be able to play if you don't jump back into childlike wonder, into just seeing the world as an amusement park, into seeing everything as magic. That's what hand a kid a spoon. He doesn't see spoon. He sees a drum kit, right? He sees a rocket. Be like that back again into your life as an adult. Just see Monday not as a day that you have to go to work. Just see Monday as a blessed day to perhaps what's going to happen today. Christmas is today, right? Remember that Christmas, if you're Christmas, you celebrate that holiday. Do you remember when you wake up in the morning and you run down to open the presents? Monday is Christmas. Tuesday is Christmas. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's under the tree. And if you just jump into that childlike wonder, the presence will be miracles. The presence will be new experiences. So that's why it's very important to reclaim what's natural, a childlike creative wonder.
So you're a self-proclaimed quantum physics nerd. So for those of us that are maybe not super familiar with quantum physics, what are maybe some of the basics that you could share that would be important for our listeners to understand?
I like that you mentioned that I'm a self-proclaimed quantum physics nerd, because by no means I'm an expert. So yeah, thank you for that.
I gave you a slate where you're not the expert. You're just sharing what you understand, which is all good.
I can share with the audience a couple, let's just narrow into one topic about quantum physics. So quantum physics is the study of the subatomic particles. So the tiniest of the tiniest of the tiniest. So in science, there is something called the quantum leap. And just not to make it complicated, I'll make it as simple as I can. A quantum leap is when a particle of energy, the smallest particle of energy, stops being in, let's call it point A, and all of a sudden appears in point B. The quantum leap means that there was no movement. No one can track movement from the particle in point A, then appearing in point B. So this could be called teletransportation, if you will.
That sounds like magic to me.
Yeah, that's real magic, right? So why did I explain this to you and I? Well, if the smallest particle could do a quantum leap, again, it's in place point A, and then it suddenly appears in point B, and there's no trace of movement, if that is energy at the smallest particle, wait a minute, you and I, what are we made of? Energy. So if that can happen at the smallest particle, can a quantum leap happen to a human being? And what would that be? Because that wouldn't be a teletransportation from me here to Canada to Mexico. No, no, no. So what would that be? For you and I, and you will have seen these in other people, but the manifestation of a human quantum leap is perhaps abundant health, a healing, a miraculous healing. Perhaps it is a new job. Perhaps it is winning the lottery or an abundant financial abundance coming into your life out of nowhere. That's a quantum leap. So if we're able to really study quantum physics and understand how a quantum leap happens, and a quantum leap happens because a big push of energy is what pushes that particle from point A to point B. So how does that apply to you? Well, you, my friend at home, would need a big push of energy to make a miracle, a quantum leap, human quantum leap happen in your life. That could be a healing, that could be money, that could be a new relationship, a new job. So that is the whole practice of imagination, of meditation, of understanding how to change the habits, how to jump, how to embody that new person. Because the more you embody that new person you want to be, one day, as if by magic, the new relationship appears, the money appears, the healing appears. So that's a little bit of the human quantum leap that I'm talking about.
You've talked about meditation a few times and that sacred silence. Um, how do you implement meditation into your life? Is it that you try to meditate every day for 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour? What does your meditation practice look like?
My meditation practice is something that I always playing with. Again, childlike wonder, playing with things. In the beginning, I must confess, and I think this happens to everyone, so I want you to encourage you at home to understand this. I didn't know how to meditate. I still perhaps maybe don't know what it is. And when I started, I do want to share that when I started trying to meditate, I closed my eyes for like, I believe it was 30 seconds. And it felt like 3 hours. I couldn't focus. I felt a little afraid on that black screen behind my eyes. And I thought it was a long time, but I remember looking at my clock and it was not even a minute. So, but today, jump now like a couple of years after, I can sit down. I love at least an hour and a half of that playful time with myself inside my imagination. And I actually go through a process of imagination, visualization, and prayer. So all of these are a little different. But what I would encourage you back at home and I would encourage you to do is simply start getting familiarized with closing your eyes and remembering that everything is okay. Everything is love around you and inside of you. Just that. Just feel peace. Can you teach your body to feel peace and love without anything giving it to you, just by being in silence? So that practice alone, sitting in silence, relaxing my body, and understanding that that's the goal. The goal is not to get money, to get a new relationship. No, no, no. The goal is to sit and feel my life inside of me. That alone has healed my body, has brought me experiences that I've never thought I could have experienced, like writing a book, like talking here with you today, finishing my second book too. So just sitting in silence and understanding that life loves me has brought so much peace, joy, abundance, and magic in my life.
I've been practicing about 10 minutes to 60 minutes of meditation a day for the last few years. And it's similar to you. So normally the first portion of it is I'm just focused on the breath, just being present, just, inhale, exhale, no thoughts, just being present. And then the next part I have is I let my mind wander, which
Mm.
is kind of being open to infinite intelligence or whatever it is, um, and just letting whatever ideas come to me. And I've had amazing ideas come to me that I have no idea where they came from. And it's normally all day long we're stimulated and we're watching this and listening to that, and there's no chance for your subconscious to speak to you or infinite intelligence. So I find that it's kind of this little um kind of like a little transmitter or a receiver or
Yeah.
something, that there's a specific amount of time every day that okay, give me the goods, what do we got today, what's going on. And then the last portion is like you, where I do visualization, where it's visualizing the day ahead, visualizing what my life could be if I was able to do the things I know I should do, and fulfill my potential. And I actually had a similar experience to you. I did a 2-day silent meditation retreat. So within 48 hours, I believe it was about 36 hours of meditation. So it was crazy. It was life changing. And I had an experience like you had, where we set a timer for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So we are practicing a certain type of meditation. And when the alarm went off, I thought that I had been meditating for maybe 2 hours, and then you come back to reality and you realize it was the 15-minute timer that we had set in advance. So it's kind of funny how time is relative. Um, sometimes like that, it feels like it's been several hours and it's only been a few minutes. And sometimes you have an unpleasant experience where just uh, you know things feel like they're forever, or you're with a friend and uh, you've been together for 2 hours and it feels like it's only been 10 minutes, where time flies. So it's funny how that time kind of expands or retracts that way. In the book, you talk about physical senses and you talk about spiritual senses. What's the difference between the two, and why is that a concept that you bring up and that you teach about?
Well, I realize that you have five senses, five physical senses, as we know, are sight, touch, hearing, smell, and taste. And I realized that these five physical senses, we have it in our body, and our body is the body is not who you are. The body is a tool, right? It's an instrument for you, a consciousness, to be here. So if these physical senses are here to help you have physical experiences, there must be other senses that could help us experience the spirit world, or this quantum field, or the God, if you will, the divine intelligence. I just started to think about it, and I'm like, it kind of makes sense. If there's physical world and there's an invisible spirit world, we must have other type of senses, because I cannot touch the spirit world. I cannot taste it. So I started to think about how is it that in meditation, imagination, visualization, prayer, we can connect to this alternate reality, this spirit world. And it was senses like imagination. Wait a minute, yeah, if I close my eyes, I can sense something. Imagination was one of intuition, right? Intuition is your something is guiding you. You don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Could be a spiritual whisper, could be infinite intelligence, could be the real you telling you go left instead of right. But that comes out of an invisible world. So I just thought it was a really interesting conversation. I share with you some of them in my book, but I'm sure there's more. I share intention, I share intuition, I share imagination. So for me, these are just other kind of tools that help you connect with the invisible world, with the spirit world. And there must be a lot more out there. But the idea is using these senses so you can connect to the real you. Because I do want you to know that you're not your body, you're the consciousness behind that body. So, what are the real tools in our consciousness that we can use to connect to that, to everything around us, to the inside of us? And those are these spiritual senses I talk about in my book, like imagination, intuition, and intention. So yeah, this is a very interesting conversation.
One of your missions is to help people remember that their natural state is one of love, peace, joy, and happiness. So why do we forget that? And how can we get back to that natural state?
Your natural state indeed is the one of love, happiness, peace, and joy. And we only have to look at babies to remind us that that is what's natural. A baby is in flow. A little kid is happy, abundant, loved, is just feeling joy for life and peace. We forget about these things because we get trained into what I call the program, right? The program is like the Matrix, like the movie The Matrix. We get trained into believing in lack. Even if you go to the bank, let's say any bank, you see a poster on the wall that says start saving for retirement. That poster alone is perpetuating lack. It's saying that when you get older, there's not going to be enough if you don't start to do something right now. So little things like that. Even in school, for example, in school, not the teachers, I'm not talking about the teachers, I'm talking about the society, the program. We are taught in school that there's an authority outside of us. We need to raise our hand to go do the most natural thing on earth, which is going to the washroom. We get told in school that asking for help is called cheating, right? Like if I don't know the answer to the test and I want you, my friend, to tell me, that's the most natural thing to do. If I don't know the answer, I want you to help me. I ask for help. I'm called a cheater, right? I'm cheating. So all those little things, that's why we forget that joy, happiness, abundance is natural because we were trained, we get trained out of it. In order for you to get back to it, it's just, I call it to live inspired. To live inspired, if you separate that word, it actually has two words inside, in spirit, inspired. So to live in spirit is to do the things you love. Perhaps is showing magic tricks to your friends, playing music, being a magician, talking to some people in wonderful people in the podcast to see how can I help your audience, writing a book. What inspires you? Is it cooking? Is it dancing? Is it painting? We must go back to remembering or discovering with childlike wonder what is it that helps you become and be inspired and do more of that. Essentially, we are going back to the beginning. That's the key.
What's your favorite part of being an author? And is there something you're most proud of about your book that you've released?
The most fascinating thing about being an author is the fact that I never thought I could. So again, we're going back to that program, to that limiting belief pattern, to just believing that I wasn't good enough. The best thing about being an author is not necessarily that I get to call myself an author, but is, as you mentioned it before, is the journey that happened that I had to become someone, I have to embody someone else to be an author. For me, that journey, having a book published, was the the graduation of I am a different person. I am a different Rodrigo. I did break the habit of being myself. So that for me, that's what means the most, and it's the most fascinating of being an author. I didn't believe I could do it because my first language, by the way, is Spanish. My previous profession, I was a graphic designer, so I think in pictures. I don't think in words. And so just to kind of the language barrier and to think in pictures, it was something I would have never imagined. So this experience of being an author really meant becoming a new self. And that's why I encourage people in my books. I think that's also one of my favorite parts, is to help someone realize you already have everything you need inside of you to be, do, have anything. That's a little bit of the exciting magic part.
I saw that this book was also released in Spanish. So did you write it in Spanish and translate to English, or did you write it in English and translate to Spanish?
I wrote it first in English,
Wow,
and
you
and
are a
then
man. I like it.
and then I went and I toured in Mexico. I went to Mexico to visit my family. That's where I'm from, and we in 1 month we toured two different cities, a couple of locations on each, and people were asking me, "And where is the Spanish version?" And because not everyone in Mexico can read in English, and it was through that inspiration that a year later I released the Spanish version. So now it's in Amazon too in Spanish.
Hmm. And you mentioned that you're writing a new book. Can you let us in a little bit on this new book, or is this top secret until it comes out?
No, no, no. I want to share everything with you because magically enough, it is coming within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So this is a perfect way for me to introduce it. So thank you for that, Joe. Uh, my second book, it's called The Magic Spark: Reclaiming the Essence of Who You Really Are. So in my first book, How to Create and Experience Magic in Your Life, it's kind of the awakening to all this fascinating world and tools, right? It's like, wait a minute, I don't have to be a victim. I can be a creator. In this second book, The Magic Spark: Reclaiming the Essence of Who You Really Are, it's about really remembering that you actually don't have to go and create anything. You simply enjoy it. It's already present, it's here. You simply allow it. So the first one is the journey of the awakening, and the second one is more about, wait a minute, I don't have to force anything. Everything is already happening. Creation is finished. Everything you and I desire, and anyone desire, is already present in this physical universe. So we can enjoy it because of that. So it's about how to sync with it and how to allow abundance into your life.
When when someone releases a book and they become an author, that opens up 17 new income streams because there's physical book sales, there's audiobook sales, there's ebook sales, there's in-person courses that you can create around the content of your book. There's online courses. You can now become a guest on a TV show, a radio show, a podcast. It's basically like a calling card or a business card that gives you credibility that you are the authority on the subject that you've written about in a book. You literally wrote the book on it. So, have any new opportunities presented themselves to you as a first time author releasing a book?
Writing a book has been one of the biggest blessings in my life. It has opened conversations, possibilities that I would have never imagined. A few examples of the big and small, and I encourage this you in at home. I encourage you to start seeing miracles and don't judge them, don't categorize them between big and small. They just are miracles. Okay, so I'll share with you a couple with you. I have the blessing to now work with a non-for-profit organization that helps people in the marketing industry with tools on how to increase their mental health, their emotional intelligence, and to simply have a more balanced life. So that's been huge. I would have never imagined me being an authority, being able to stay in front of stand in front of an audience and share my story. That's how I get in. It's my story of how I was depressed, overweight, confused, everything, you name it, sick. And now I'm able to inspire someone. I also get the little message here and there from people that I don't know, that I never even met in my life, saying, thank you for writing this book. It helped me understand something I was looking for. And that's what I think is the biggest blessing any human can have, is the ability to inspire another human being into greatness. And by the way, you don't have to do this with a book. You can just simply do it by smiling and being a presence of love in someone else's life. But we are talking about the example of a book, and having those two really different examples, a single person that I didn't know shared with me those things, or just now being able to work with non-for-profit organizations or other marketing organizations or corporations and teach this material to help the individual have a more purposefully driven, abundant life, has been a blessing for me.
We've been talking a lot about your books. Are you a big reader, and do you have any favorite books of all time, whether it's fiction or personal growth, just any books?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, the new Rodrigo. So when I started to create a new Rodrigo, I knew that that person needed to learn information, and I was a student of really good information. In the beginning, I couldn't read, I must admit, so I was listening to audiobooks. But it was not until last year, 2020, that I genuinely read for the first time. I'm going to say since I was a boy, and I did accomplish my 12 books. I know, Joel, you're a reading machine. You kind of have over 70 books in 1 year. So I'm going to catch up to you, buddy. But one of my favorite books, absolutely, I want to share books that will help you, not only mine, but just books that will really help you transform your life. And some of them are Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural. That actually was one of the first ones that changed my mind, my life. There's another one by Dr. David Hawkins. It's called Power versus Force. Very scientifical, but at the same time, is science that now is explaining spirituality. Wow. So he explains in his book that there's two energies that you live life with, and you can choose power, meaning abundance, or force, meaning you go out there and force things. You put energy, and that will always make you weak. But when you live through power, abundance, it will give you always energy. It's really fascinating. And last but not least, I would definitely want to recommend everyone The Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne Dyer. One of the best books I've read in understanding what this thing called source, God, the universe, if you will, this loving energy is. And had a really beautiful conversation on how we can remember that the same qualities, so the same qualities that this loving energy has, loving, infinite, abundant, creative, are the same qualities you and I possess. So you are already loving, abundant, creative, kind, and beautiful. You don't have to do anything. You already are those things because we come from that loving energy. So those will be three books that I recommend anyone jumping into.
How important are mentors when it comes to finding success? And have you had any mentors that have helped you become the person that you are today?
Mentors, it's it you can either achieve your goal. You could achieve your goal by yourself, but you just have to realize that do you want to spend 30 years getting to your goal, or you want to spend 3 years? And that's where a mentor comes in. And I didn't know this. I gotta admit, I was one of those. Again, I was a zombie before. I was asleep. I was in the program, thinking that coaching and mentorship, it was just expensive, and it was just something I didn't need. Again, because just like in school, they teach you that asking for help is called cheating. So I had to get over that. Once I got over that, writing a book, I couldn't do it alone. I had a mentor. I absolutely had a mentor. And they sometimes, most of the times, I would say, the investment that you and I make in coaching or mentorship, you get it back because you grow and outgrow that mentorship, and now you apply it into your life. So the cost of doing the book, perhaps that mentorship, I already have it and more. I also invested in spiritual intelligence. I wanted to understand what that means, or what is it to have a change from the inside out. So mentorships and coaches are absolutely important. And I would recommend anyone that if you're in that journey of discovering who to find as a mentor, absolutely, that's the key conversation. The question is not, should I have a mentor? I think the question should be, who do I want to choose to be my mentor? Because you can get to your goal in 30 years, or you can get to your goal in 3. That's how I see it. And now I'm very open to keep learning, because again, and I do want to mention this too. We have a bad habit of thinking that school finished after college, right? Because that's what we've been taught. Oh, school finished. Now you got to work and you're the master. You know life. I'm like, no, I'm 30 something and I'm still learning how to be. I think I'm a baby. I don't know how to live this world called life. So if you find a mentor that really speaks to you, about anything, business, lifestyle, spirituality, just perhaps invest in you, not in him or her, in you. So yes, I absolutely think they're really important to the development of any life.
Like you mentioned, mentors help you to condense time frames. And the most successful people on the planet, on average, they invest 10% of their income per year back into themselves, into personal growth, into buying more books, taking more courses, um, hiring mentors. And something that I learned is, if possible, you should have a mentor in every area of your life that's important to you. So if it's important for you to get in great shape and be healthy, you should have a mentor, whether it's a holistic nutritionist or a personal trainer. If you're looking to invest, you should have a mentor in the stock market. Just, we don't have enough time to become an expert at everything that's important to us, but we do have enough time to build relationships with experts in each of those areas. So I think that's all very important. You mentioned spiritual intelligence. What is spiritual intelligence, and how does someone become an expert?
Well, I was introduced to the topic by my mentor, James McNeil. But now that I can now have an opinion on what this is. And it makes sense, by the way. So now I share with people the four dimensions of health. The four dimensions, health is divided into four dimensions: the physical health, intellectual health, emotional health, and spiritual health. We all try to go at it in reverse. We all try to first get fit or healthy or whatever that means, physical health. Then we try to get our mental health in order, like what am I thinking, where my attention is going. Then I try to get my emotional health in place. Am I feeling the right things? And last but not least, then, oh, maybe I have time for spiritual health. But I want to encourage people to understand that it's actually backwards. The be do have formula that you shared before starts with the spirit, the inside. So spiritual intelligence, it's one intelligence beyond your emotional intelligence, your intellectual intelligence, your physical intelligence. Is actually where your life is. There are spiritual laws that are active all the time, just like the law of the gravity, right? Like it affects you whether you like it or not, whether you're aware of it or not. There are spiritual laws. So I think it's very helpful if you and I start to understand what are those laws, what is my part in all of this called life. So life comes from spirit. And how can I just really have the knowledge to really implement it into my life to now live an abundant life? So spiritual intelligence is you connecting to the invisible part of you and understanding what that role is and what that role is in your life. So spiritual intelligence is the success from the inside out and understanding that conversation.
So, having taken the 3-day Pure Spiritual Intelligence course twice and having read James McNeil's book, Pure Spiritual Intelligence, I'm familiar with the topic. I'm familiar. It's actually some pretty amazing stuff, and it's pretty life changing. So I would recommend our listeners to dive a little bit more into those. You can either reach out to Rodrigo, or you can look into Mr. James McNeil online and connect with him as well. So I have just a couple more questions before we wrap up. So we're still pretty much at the start of 2021. So what what's your vision for the rest of the year for 2021, and have you set any specific goals that get you out of bed in the morning excited every day?
One of the most fascinating conversations you and I can have, and that's what gets me out of my bed in the morning, is imagination. And I'll explain that what that means in this topic of setting goals or just planning. For me, I don't plan goals anymore in a very linear way. I don't do that anymore because now I'm understanding what it means to be spiritually connected or having developed that emotional spiritual intelligence. But what gets me out of bed is the Rodrigo I've already built through my imagination. So, imagination for me is the tool you have to get there. Just like a sculptor artist has a hammer and a chisel, right? So it's through those tools that that person, that artist, can unveil this beautiful sculpture. Imagination is your tool to your dream life, to create a masterpiece, to create that beautiful sculpture called your dream life. So what gets me out of bed is the ability to be able to imagine my success, whatever success means to me, my perfect dream life as if it was happening right now. That feeling when you hit the sweet spot of imagining that everything you desire is happening right now and you truly believe it feels like it's happening right now, for me, that is accomplishment. That is success. That is what this whole manifestation conversation is about. So I get out of the bed to hit that spot as many times throughout the day as I can. Close your eyes for 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and can you imagine that you already have that which you desire to be, do, or have, as if it was happening right now? So I always now for this year, if you let's put it a time frame, for this year, I imagine taking my new material, my new book, into every community that I can. So you mentioned that a book opens the possibility of courses and in-person coaching. I didn't have that a year ago. And now that has been exploding to me. The ability to take this material and help you and everyone else to change their lives. So I'm just now waiting and feeling like that's happening already. It's happening in some shape or form. And I know that if I keep imagining and living as if it's already happened to the magnitude I imagine, it will come to me. That's the quantum leap. I'm collapsing particles into my experience. I don't have to go get it, it's coming to me. So that's a little bit to just answer that question of goal setting or imagination.
If you could whisper advice to your 14-year-old self, so you think over the years, all the lessons you've learned, the books you've read, the courses you've taken, the experience, the mentorship that has helped you become the leader and the professional that you are today. If you could go back in time to your 14-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself to get back to where you are today?
What a question, huh?
It's a
if
tough
you
one. It's a tough one. You got to think.
if you could go back in time and tell the 14-year-old Rodrigo something, what would that be? I want to say I wouldn't tell him anything. I believe that in my life, when I recall some events that I didn't want them to happen, they hurt. They absolutely hurt. I felt anger, confusion, anxiety, sadness. But I truly believe that if it was not because of those, I wouldn't be able to be here to serve you, to serve the audience. And maybe I would have liked to be here before, but now I know that everything is perfect, that everything is always improving, and that we are in time. I am on schedule. I'm not before or after. So even though I would like to tell that little Rodrigo, trust life. That was something I didn't do, by the way. I didn't trust life. And that's something that I realize a lot of people have. They don't trust that everything is okay and that abundance is already here. So I didn't trust that. I didn't trust that life loved me. Even though that's the advice I would like to give that little Rodrigo, just trust and feel how life loves you. I don't think I would get it. So I wouldn't be here with you today.
So that's the one and only Mr. Rodrigo Diaz Mercado, magician, author, spiritual intelligence expert. You've been listening to the Joel Martin Mastery podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I'd love to hear from you guys. My goal is to grow this podcast organically, where you're giving me feedback on topics you'd like me to cover and guests you'd like me to interview. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel, and on Twitter at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.